In this presentation, I'll be talking about acid and base disorders, but before we start talking about that, we need to understand buffers. What are buffers? We're all in AP Chem, so I'm pretty sure we all know what a buffer solution is, but just to recap, a buffer solution is a solution that can resist change in its pH while acidic or basic components are added. And three ways to compose an efficient buffer are a weak acid and its conjugate base, a strong acid to a weak base, and a strong base to a weak acid. There is a quick 3-minute video explaining buffers attached to the slide, and it should also be on your info sheet if you want to type it out and watch a quick video. That's up to you. Okay. What is buffer capacity? In understanding buffers, we also need to understand buffer capacity. And buffer capacity is the amount of acid or base a buffer can accept without having significant changes in its pH. And in order to create a strong buffer, you just need to have large amounts of conjugate acid-base pair. Buffers in the human body. There are many types of buffers in the human body, but there are three main types of buffers that help regulate blood pH. And the three main types of buffers are the carbonic acid buffer, the phosphate buffer, and the buffering of plasma proteins. The third buffer is the most abundant, but the first is usually considered the most important because of its connection to the respiratory system, and it is the buffer that I'm going to be focusing the most on. What is pH? pH is measured on a scale from 0 to 14, and it is just a measure of how acidic or basic something is. And 0 is the most acidic, and 14 is the most basic, and 7 is neutral. Some things that are neutral are like water. Some things that are acidic are like lemons, tomatoes, stomach acid, vinegar, and some basic things are like bleach, drain cleaner, soap, etc. Blood pH levels. Normally, as humans, we want to have blood pH between 7.35 to 7.45. If our blood pH drops between 7 to 7.35, it causes acidosis. And if it rises from 7.45 to 7.8, it creates alkalosis. And if your blood's pH drops below 7 or rises below 7.8, it could result in death. And in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about acidosis and alkalosis. So what is acidosis and alkalosis? Acidosis is a condition where there's too much acid in the body's fluids. In other words, the pH is too low. And alkalosis is where there are too many basic components in the body's fluids and pH is too high. And there are two main categories in both acidosis and alkalosis, which are respiratory and metabolic. I'm going to be focusing on respiratory for both, but metabolic acidosis and alkalosis can be more severe and more life-threatening than respiratory acidosis and respiratory alkalosis. But before getting more specific into acidosis and alkalosis, let's go back to talking about the carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. The carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system is used by our body, specifically the respiratory system, to regulate blood acidity. And how it works is as carbon dioxide dissolves in water, it creates carbonic acid. And the carbonic acid then continues to dissociate and produce bicarbonate ions and acid. And since it is used by the respiratory system, it is directly related to alkalosis and acidosis. So, what exactly happens during respiratory acidosis? Well, respiratory acidosis is caused when there is an accumulation of carbon dioxide in the respiratory system. Usually when our brain detects an increase in carbon dioxide, it automatically increases the respiratory rate. But sometimes that doesn't work, and it could be because of a number of reasons, some of which are the central nervous system being depressed, for example, due to opioid use or depressants, or neuromuscular disorders like exhaustion or ALS, or airway obstructions like asthma or COPD. So, as the carbon dioxide begins to accumulate, the partial pressure begins to increase and the partial pressure of bicarbonate begins to decrease. And as we all know, that would shift our reaction to the right, creating more acid, which causes pH to drop. And in order to treat respiratory acidosis or to undo this effect, all you would have to do is take deep breaths and exhale fully to help your body return to a state of homeostasis. So what happens during respiratory alkalosis? Well, respiratory alkalosis occurs when there's a decrease in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. And according to our equation, that would shift our reaction to the left. There are usually two main causes for respiratory alkalosis. One is caused by hypoxic drives like pneumonia, pulmonary heart embolism, and congestive heart failure, and others that are caused by non-hypoxic drives like fear, agitation, fever, or pain. And all of these things cause you to hyperventilate. And what that does is it causes your pH to rise due to our equation being shifted to the left and us not having enough acid. So how do you treat respiratory alkalosis? Well, a lot of the times people will have others breathe into a paper bag. That way when you exhale carbon dioxide, you can inhale some of it back into your system, helping the equation shift back to the right and returning your body to a state of homeostasis. Okay, so a quick review about what we just talked about. Our blood pH levels should be between 7.35 to 7.45, and if your blood drops below 7.35 between 7, it causes acidosis, which is also caused by an increase of the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in your system, and going below that would result in death. And having your blood pH levels be between 7.45 and 7.8 causes alkalosis, which is caused by not having enough carbon dioxide in your system, and going above that would also result in death. Here are my sources, and there's also a copy of the sources on the info sheet. Thank you.